Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 1st, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. You can see British Columbia, Washington, Oregon here. Cutoff low exists over the Intermountain West and the Pacific Ocean. You can see a decent system moving up through southeast Alaska, helping to amplify the ridge across Pacific Northwest. As we go into early October, elsewhere you can see the intertropical convergence zone down here, tropical system developing. We'll check out the extended forecast here when we'll try to pinpoint when we can expect some of these warmer temperatures to go away and when we can start to bring some precipitation into the region here. And when is that going to happen? We'll take a look at that here coming up. You can see here on the visible satellite imagery a lot of sunshine around the region. You can see how we get this time of year and start to get the valley fog hanging out a bit longer. You can see the smoke that exists across western Washington. I could smell it outside my house this morning. So we have that easterly component to the winds now, introducing that forest fire smoke. Looks like a little bit better through the Willamette Valley, but you can see the Cedar Creek fire still pumping out some smoke there. And you can see the kind of low clouds here hanging into the southern Willamette Valley, southwest Oregon. You can see those low clouds hanging around for portions of western Washington as well. Now, taking a look here, Spokane with their graphics, warm, dry weather returns October 1st through 5th here, and around 10 degrees above average. Nice early October weather. Get out and enjoy it. You know how this goes. It's not going to last. Seattle, Washington, a bit above average yesterday. You can see we've been right around the average the last 3 days here or so. We're going to start to move a little bit more above average here through the extended forecast. And this is for October. We have 79 for the record high on the 2nd and 80 on the 3rd. The temperatures have kind of been, models have been backing off on the temperatures a bit here. So I don't know if we're going to set record highs on the 2nd or the 3rd, but we may get close. We'll continue to watch that as we go. And again, I showed this yesterday. I'll show it again today. The red is the record high temperatures. The green is the average temperatures, high and low. And the blue are record all-time low temperatures. So you can see how we really start to drop off during the month of October and then into November here as we go on in through the year. Now, taking a look here, we are looking at Portland, Oregon. You can see 74, a little bit above average. They were 1 degree below average here for the previous day. Got some decent rainfall through the area, but now we're going to start to warm things up with that ridge building here coming up here for the next few days. This is for Portland also here. I wanted to show, let's go ahead and show Eugene, Oregon here. And you can see generally below average yesterday. They did get a little bit of precipitation a couple days ago like we talked about here. But as we look here, you can see Eugene started in the low 80s, and then you can see how we kind of end up towards the low 70s as we get towards the end of September here. So pretty interesting here as we go through the fall transition. It's being extended a little bit here because we're getting some nice weather, and we're really going to have ridging around, going to really reduce the amount of precipitation we get with, as we move in through probably all the way towards mid-October. Taking a look at the HRRR here, this is 8 meters above ground smoke density. You can kind of see that easterly component kicking some of this forest fire smoke into western Washington. It's probably a bit worse than the HRRR's been showing here. I don't know. This model has not been very accurate lately. It doesn't show the Cedar Creek fire much or the Bolt Creek fire here, and it is producing smoke, and I can smell it outside. You can see it on the visible satellite imagery here, but you can kind of see the easterly component here. It's the only reason I'm showing it right now. Now, taking a look at the northern hemisphere, this is the European yesterday afternoon's run. You can see that upper level low here, the one that's getting cut off over the Pacific Ocean here. Here's that ridge building we're getting over the Pacific Northwest. As we go through the extended here, you can see that upper level low taking its sweet time to move across the Dakotas there. Troughing continues to be brought down into the Gulf of Alaska here, but it kind of continuously gets cut off here as we go through the 7th here. Now we're into October 8th. Now, stronger polar lobe has been showing up in some of the extended runs here. As you can see here, this one's more progressive and pushes through, flattens this ridge out as we go through October 10th here. 10 days out, though, on the European yesterday's deterministic run. But you can see this would flatten things out here. And again, as we get towards this time of year, things can change really rapidly. We can really smash ridges and bring troughs into the area really quickly with only a couple days of notice. So it's just something worth watching here as we go through on in towards mid-October here. Now, taking a look here, this is the ensemble mean. This is the ensemble. This is the average of all 50 ensemble runs here. You can see the cutoff low inland over the Pacific Ocean here. Ridge builds as that system moves through southeast Alaska that I showed on the mid-level water vapor loop. And you can see the ridge kind of hanging out here as we go through mid next week. Trough tries to get a little bit close, but it quickly retrogrades backwards. We get the ridge building here through October 7th. And as we go into October 8th here, you can kind of see the same polar lobe exists up here. But this is going to be much more of a smooth solution here on the ensemble run. So even though we may get a stronger trough swinging through the area, again, this is an average of all the ensemble runs. But you can see the troughing does exist here. It starts to get a bit closer as we move towards mid-October. So we would potentially start to look for a pattern change then, but this is just kind of an averages game here. We'll take a look at the control run here. Now, the ensemble members, this is the most likely scenario according to the ensembles, and this one goes out 360 hours. So here goes that upper level low inland. Finally taking its sweet time, gets out of there. You can see the reinforcement of the Gulf of Alaska troughing there. Retrogrades allows us to build a ridge here through October 7th, 8th. And this next polar lobe starts to swing through British Columbia and really smashes this ridge down a bit here across the area. So this is what we'll be watching here as we get towards October 9th, 10th to see if this thing is going to be more progressive or perhaps stronger and move a bit more down through British Columbia towards western Washington, Oregon. And then you can see on to the extended forecast mid-October, you can see how this troughing gets much closer here to the Pacific Northwest. But again, this is just things to watch for now. We're just kind of trying to see if we can get any consistency in the extended forecast. It's not that likely here at this point of the year. As like I said, things can change rapidly, so we'll just continue to watch that. But right now, we are leaning towards a strong ridge being over the area as we go through October, all the way in through next weekend here, actually, before this next polar lobe. We'll see what that does. Now, taking a look here, here's the European on the left, GFS on the right. Ridge builds, upper level lows. Both sides are kind of good agreement there with the models. Gulf of Alaska troughing. Tries to get a little bit closer here on the GFS. Ridge pushes east a tiny bit, but quickly retrogrades. Build the ridge here across the area. You can see pretty good model agreement on that ridge. GFS starts to bring that lobe through as well, but it's much further north. However, the Gulf of Alaska troughing is much more prevalent here on the GFS as we go out towards the 10-day period. But again, yeah, so this ridge looks like pretty high confidence as we go through later this week towards next weekend here across the area. And after that, we'll continue to watch for that pattern change. No promises yet. Now, looking at the northern hemisphere, this is 500 millibar geopotential height. And you can see the actual position of these polar lobes here. This is 18,000 feet. So you can kind of see some of this cold air get thrown down towards the Gulf of Alaska, and it gets quickly cut off. You can see it doesn't stay connected to the polar vortex to the north here, so it can't swing it through, but you can see that polar vortex up here at hour 144. Pretty strong here. So this is what we're going to be watching for the extended. Is it going to swing another lobe down? Is this going to stay connected and be a bit more progressive and move through British Columbia here? In fact, let's back up one run so we can go a little bit further here, and you can kind of see that activity dive down across British Columbia here. This would flatten that ridge out and bring some more precipitation, mainly British Columbia area. But again, this is way out there. But this is something we've been watching here for a few days. This could lead finally to the pattern change. And just because we get a pattern change at this time of year doesn't mean after some of these systems move through, we couldn't get transient ridges and some nice days, after this, all the way in through early November. This depends on how things line up. It's not like we're going to flip a switch and just be rainy for the rest of the fall and the winter here. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is the GFS ensemble mean here. You can see the dynamic tropopause. This is kind of what you would call the polar vortex here across the North Pole, or as I'd like to call them, polar lobes. You can see cold air come, get pinched off over the Gulf of Alaska here, kind of form these cutoff lows here, allows us to get our ridging as we go through next weekend. But then you can see in the extended forecast here as this cold air kind of starts to build up across the North Pole area, the polar vortex grows in size as we get later on into the season, making it more likely that one of these troughs is going to move through and be progressive and kind of limit the time we spend under these ridges here as we go through mid-October. Now taking a look here, Spokane International Airport. You can see nice warm temperatures, but nothing too extreme, and you can see some fairly chilly overnight lows, so no heat wave or anything like that. Here's Klamath Falls. You can see some nice warm days, but chilly overnight lows. And again, remember, we're only spending a bit of time at these high temperatures. This is not like summer where you're spending several hours in the low 80s and you're building up heat. You know, you kind of peak quickly and then you start to cool off pretty rapidly. As you can see, we're looking at a 35-degree spread between some of these highs and lows here throughout the this week and on towards next weekend. Seattle, Tacoma, we've been backing off on these temperatures here for Sunday and Monday. We were looking at potential record highs. I don't know if we're going to get there now. We'll continue to watch this though. Things can still trend upwards there. And then a bit of a cool down and then the potential warm back up again next weekend with that ridging. That's looking fairly confident in that forecast there. Now looking at Kamloops, they backed off a bit on the temperatures here too for this weekend into early next week. And see things cool down a bit more, a little bit more question on just how much warmth is going to be around there as we go through next weekend. The further north you get, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that ridge develops exactly, but pretty good confidence there. Brookings, Oregon, kind of looking for that offshore flow warm up here, not seeing it in yesterday afternoon's runs. You remember a couple days ago, we saw some of that warm up here off through the extended back up towards the low 80s, but not seeing anything like that in the runs the last couple of days. Seattle, Tacoma, just kind of showing you the chaotic nature of some of the precipitation potential as we go towards mid-October. Just a very poor, nebulous, unreliable signal for now. Tillamook Airport, same thing here too. You can just see a lot of dry runs and some of these runs with some beefy precipitation totals as we go through mid-October. So here's the monthly temperature outlook for October. This was issued yesterday, September 30th. You can see the Pacific Northwest generally above average conditions expected. Of course, just a warm first half of the month for October and maybe a little bit chillier than normal for the second half. You could still get above average conditions. So this is just a general temperature outlook for October 2022. You can see the above average signal for much of northern Alaska there as well, and some of the Great Plains also. So anyway, take what you want from this coming up here, but we may get that pattern change mid-October. We'll see how that goes coming up here. Now, I wanted to talk about this really quick, the Madden Julian oscillation. I get some questions about this. I'll probably try to include as much as I can when I do my La Nina video. I'll try to put the Madden Julian oscillation with that. I was going to do a little bit more with this today, but generally the Madden Julian oscillation is not that well of an understood dynamic of the planet. It's basically a tropical wave that moves across the planet. There's some debate in the meteorological community on just exactly what we should be measuring or how we should be measuring it. Generally, we're kind of looking at wind anomalies at 200 millibars, which is 39,000 feet, and 850 millibars, which is 5,000 feet, and versus on outgoing long wave radiation, which means brown here you would have no clouds, and green you'd have enhanced clouds, which means enhanced convection. And then when you have enhanced convection, you inject that energy up northward into the jet stream, and that affects the wave train downstream, the troughs and the ridges and where they might set up. But right now, we really do not have a good handle on the Madden Julian oscillation, or really its phases or what they mean for downstream weather. We do have some composites and anomalous temperature and precipitation predictions based on it, but a lot of times they don't work out. But when used with La Nina, you can get some skill from the Madden Julian oscillation. Anyway, I'll try to go over that a little bit more when I do my La Nina video here coming up in the next month or so. Still working on the windstorm video here coming up, just trying to debate how many windstorms I want to cover in this and exactly how I want to do it. But anyway, yeah, so we'll just go ahead and enjoy this weather coming up this week. We're going to have probably some ridging all the way through the week towards next weekend, then potential for a pattern change, but no guarantees as we go through mid-October here coming up. But things can change rapidly at this time of year. Troughs can show up and precipitation events can come with only a couple, 2-3 days notice at this time of year. But anyway, enjoy that weather. You know how this is going to go once we get into later October and November, December. You're going to be wishing for these nice, fairly warm afternoons, even though we have some chilly overnight lows. We are not expecting any heat waves around the area. So anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this weather. We'll continue to watch to see what kind of pattern change potentially is on the horizon. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.